I remembered to start the recording, Francis. So I am going to share my screen with you for a presentation of information that we've put together for tonight. And so I'll start by welcoming you. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us for what is the first meeting of our VISD Bond Planning Task Force for the 2020-2021 school year. This is actually year 2 of that task force work. We're very fortunate and appreciative to have task force members who began serving last school year, and we are also excited to have some additional members of our community, parents and staff, joining us for this year as well. So we're going to always start by expressing our thanks to you and for your time and dedication to our school district. The bond planning committee, the work of the bond planning committee is very significant to the success of our school district. And we know what a busy world we live in, and we know that we are on a schedule that is asking each of you to meet as often as possible weekly with us over the next 7 out of the next 9 weeks, I believe it is, between now and December 8th. So we just want to let you know that we recognize the contribution and commitment you're making to us and to our school district, and want you to know that we appreciate that sincerely. I want to take just a moment to talk about who we are. There's going to be a time just a little bit later in tonight's meeting where I'm going to ask each of you to share out very briefly so that we know who all is a part of this group, but just broadly in terms of our facilitators for this bond planning task force. My name is Greg Bonewald. Many of you I've had the pleasure to work with in the past in one capacity or another. And there's some folks here that I haven't had a chance to meet in person, and I look forward to doing that when the world allows us to do that. But certainly appreciate you being here with us virtually. I have worked in public education for 23 years, and the last 7 of those in Victoria ISD. I serve as the Deputy Superintendent of the school district. Also serving as facilitators throughout this process as we meet over the next several months will be Francis Coe and Stanton Lawrence. And I want to just take a second for them to say hello to the group.
Good evening, everybody. Francis Coe, Assistant Superintendent of Budget and Finance, and I've been with the district 30 years.
I'm Stanton Lawrence. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Administration. I'm in my 3rd month with the district, but I have nearly 40 years in public education.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. We welcome you to VISD. We're very blessed to have you here and look forward to you working with this task force. Just broadly as a task force, this number has been climbing over the last 2 days. We really appreciate all the commitments. Right now we have 47 confirmed members of the VISD Bond Planning Task Force. Breaking that down, 34 of those are within the parent and community category, and 13 are VISD staff members, some of which also fall into the parent and community category as well. And we're going to have some time just in a bit for each of you to share briefly. I do want to also recognize and extend the invitation for our Huckabee team. We work with Huckabee Architects on the facilities assessment, and we have 2 representatives from Huckabee who have joined us tonight. And so briefly, Megan and Dan, would you mind saying hello to the group as well?
Sure. Good evening. Hi, I'm Megan Smith, Director of Client Communications with Huckabee. So Huckabee is a planning and design firm. We're solely dedicated to serving educational clients in the state of Texas, which we've done so for over 50 years. We're here to simply serve as a resource to the task force and bring our bond planning expertise and school design and construction expertise to the process. Very grateful to be a part of it and look forward to the important work ahead.
Thank you, Megan.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Luttrell. I'm an architect with Huckabee Architects. I've been working in school architecture for 14 years. Prior to that, I actually taught high school for 5 years and a magnet school teaching architecture and design. For that, I practiced architecture in Dallas for a number of years, doing public facilities, libraries, courts, police stations, etc. So I've got quite a bit of experience in not only school architecture, but in the classroom as well. I've had the great pleasure of getting to know your administrators and many of your staff, as I actually went and walked 21 facilities that Dr. Baumwald will show us, and I'll later on I'll probably talk through what that assessment was. But I spent quite a bit of time in Victoria walking the facilities, working with your administrators, like I said, working with John Urbano and Josh McNeely and the staff there to become more familiar with your facilities so that we can assist, as Megan said, as just an extension of your staff or as outside experts to help with that information. And Greg, I don't want to sound like I'm correcting you, but we also have Devin Wilson from Huckabee on the line with us. So I just want to make sure that he's recognized. He is our Vice President of Huckabee Architects and the Director of the Houston office. So.
Well, Devin,
good evening, everyone.
Yeah, please say hello to the group as well.
Good evening, everyone. As they said, we're excited to be a part of the team, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we've been working with Huckabee Architects for about a year now, and just want to express our appreciation. They've been a great partner and a great resource to us throughout this process over the last year. We've got a fairly full agenda, and I want to preface going through this agenda by sharing with the task force that as our work proceeds, the primary work is going to be task force sharing with our administration and leadership team your thoughts, your views, the voice of the community. Tonight's initial meeting is going to be sort of a large amount of data to try to make sure that we have a shared foundational understanding around certain aspects of the school district. I did share with Dr. Morgan, if some of you were on the meeting a few minutes before we started, that a lot of the information shared tonight will be a review of sorts for those individuals who were part of our task force last year. But the information we're going to share is really important that we all have as a baseline understanding about school districts, finance, bond planning, things of that nature. So tonight will be a lot of receiving for our task force members. Please know that you do not have to take notes in terms of what is on these slides. Everything about this process is intended to be as transparent as possible. These slides will be sent to you. They will be made available on our website for anybody in our public to see. So there's no need to write down things that are written on here. This will all be shared with you. The things that we will be covering tonight, one, we're going to talk a little bit about the language of our district and separating out what we consider in VISD to be the complicated work from the complex work. Talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about what the charge of the task force is and how the task force work relates to the work of the school district and the school board. We'll review the virtual meeting norms. Meeting virtually is a little different than meeting in person, and so we just want to have a common understanding for how our meetings will operate. We're going to do a brief member introduction. We'll walk through the district's financial overview and bond history. Share a slide about demographic projections in terms of where we see our enrollment going in the future. We'll review the steps that typically occur in a bond planning process. Dan will share with us a brief, kind of really high-level overview of the facilities assessment. Then we're going to do a little bit of practice. So I'm going to ask for some grace here. This is the first time that I've operated a Zoom meeting in a task force setting. Typically, when we are meeting in person, part of our practice is we want to have as many voices as possible, but it's really hard to have discussion in large group with 47 people. And so we typically have a practice of sharing out some information, having some small group discussion, and then coming back and sharing out with representatives from those small groups to the large group. And so we are going to make an attempt to successfully transition via Zoom. different groups of this large group into small groups to have conversation around one question tonight, and then bring you back and practice sharing out in that transition. I've got my fingers crossed. And then we are lastly going to just discuss some timeframes around this work and around the bond planning process, and what next steps look like for what we anticipate covering in our second meeting next Tuesday. So just a brief conversation around this language of separating the complicated from the complex. When Dr. Shepard came to us about 3 years ago, this is one of the really good things that he brought to us, was this concept that he and our board as a team of 8 have committed to, and that we acknowledge that there are certain tasks, there are certain responsibilities that a school district has that we define as complicated tasks. They're tasks where you have specific training, there's a specific right answer, and so experience, knowledge, education all lead you to typically come to the same answer in these complicated tasks. And so we either have internal, or in the case of here we have architects or accountants or others we work with, those complicated tasks are put to the test for those people who've had that training and that experience to answer those. And we separate that work from what we consider complex questions and complex situations that a school district might face. And when we have those complex situations, we recognize that there's typically not just one right answer, and that we need to have as many voices involved in those types of decisions as possible as a school district. And so we have utilized, our school board has empowered us to utilize task forces to tackle these complex issues. And so we've used task forces to look at questions over the last 2 years, including results that ended up with school mergers for efficiency situations. We've used task forces when we've looked at the complex challenge of rezoning as our population has migrated from south to north over time. And we've had wonderful success with involving and having our community own that process through this task force process. And we recognize that when we're talking about bond planning, that's not something that a school district does to their community. It's something that the school district should be doing with their community. And so this, again, is a question that we are bringing forward to a task force because it's complex and because there's not one right answer. And so we're going to be challenged as a group to look at things from lots of different angles and lots of different perspectives as we work together over the next several months. Now, the charge of the task force hasn't changed. I mentioned that we started meeting last year, and we started those meetings with this charge right in front of us right now. And that is that the charge of the bond planning task force is to utilize a facilities study and needs assessment to analyze and recommend short, mid, and long-term bond and facility efforts. So we recognize as a school district with 24 campuses, over 1.5 million square feet, a school district that's been around for many decades, that there are going to be some facility needs and that they may not all be met in the short term. And so part of the charge of this task force is going to be to look at all the needs across the district, to prioritize those needs, to look at where the community is, and what of those needs we can responsibly and reasonably tackle in the short, mid, and long-term planning. As a part of that, we're going to discuss a broad range of possible actions. We are not entering into this process with an answer and asking this task force to rubber stamp it. We don't have the answer right now. We are coming to this task force certainly with some ideas and thoughts as we move forward as a district leadership team, but we certainly don't have a plan that's put into place. This is a part of a plan that we will build together as a bond planning task force. And ultimately, there will be a recommendation that this bond planning task force determines consensus around to bring forward to the superintendent and the board for consideration. I want to cover the virtual meeting norms. So one of those that we're really big on is that we value your time, and we will make a point to begin and end on time. That may mean that we have a presentation one night that we have to stop short because we are going to stop at 8 o'clock. We're going to recognize that you've made a commitment in the evening, and we will go as far as we can, but we will not go beyond that 8 p.m. time. And moving forward, we will start at 6 o'clock. So no, we know that you have a busy life. If you come in a little late and we've started right at 6, please don't be offended, because we're wanting to honor the people's time. Take personal breaks as needed. We know 2 hours from 6 to 8 is a long time to sit in front of the computer. If you need to take a personal break, please do that on your own as needed. We're going to be talking about a complex issue, and people are going to look at it from different viewpoints. And one of the expectations of our task force members is, as we share our opinions and our thoughts and perspectives, that each member of the task force, while we may not agree with all the opinions of others, that we will respect one another and respect those opinions. We have a saying that that it's the best idea that we're looking for. It's not the loudest voice in the room. And so part of our expectation is that everyone will participate. Everybody that's in this group has an invested interest in our school district's success. And we want to ensure that we have all of those voices having an opportunity to share their thoughts around this complex matter. So one of our meeting norms is that everyone participates and that no one dominates. This one is specific to virtual environments. If you've had a chance to be in virtual meetings over the course of the last number of months, then you know that there are times when there's background noise, there's dogs barking, there's people having side conversations, and those things happen. You guys are, many of you, in your homes right now, as you should be. But we ask, if you're not speaking, that you have your computer on mute, so that we don't have those types of interruptions throughout the meetings. I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to remind everyone, we are going to record these meetings. One of our sayings is that we are going to be radically transparent about everything we do. We have no intention of these being secretive meetings. Our conversations are conversations that potentially could impact where our community and our school district go moving forward. So these meetings will be available for people to see. They will be recorded, and so we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that who's participating as a part of the meeting. And then lastly, last year, when we went through this process in our first few meetings with the bond planning task force last year, we asked the task force to help us define what consensus means, because we want to ultimately come to consensus around a recommendation or recommendations that this task force will bring forward to the board and the superintendent for consideration. And we also recognize, with 47 people, that we're probably not all 47 going to agree about every single point when we go through a bond planning process. So the group last year defined consensus as unanimous consent, which is basically saying, while this plan may not have everything that I want or think should be in there, when I look at it in totality, I can support that. And the group felt that the work was so important that they didn't want for one no vote or one person who couldn't say I can support that to mean that the entirety of the work didn't move forward. So ultimately, the group defined consensus as I can support that minus a few. So if among the 47, the large number of people say I can support that minus a few, which the group last year defined as 3 or 4. So that's what we're working forward with right now, is ultimately we're wanting to define a plan with the task force, a recommendation or group of recommendations that has unanimous consent, and that the group says, I can support that plan hopefully 100%, but ultimately that recommendation could move forward minus a few. And let me tell you, that was a long conversation. Now is the point where this is one of the greatest challenges for me, guys. Some of you I know better than others, but I enjoy working with people, and I really enjoy working with people face to face. And so one of the challenges of working through really important work like this is that we want you to know who you're talking to and who you're talking with and who is a part of this group. We also know that we need a large number of people to have a wide variety of perspectives of our community. So we've got, let's see, 44 people on this call right now. Now, a few of us have already introduced ourselves, but I'm going to ask for each person to put on their camera in a moment and turn off their mic and introduce themselves. And I'm going to do sort of a roll call because I don't know another way to do this quickly. But as you're introducing yourself, I've got this screen here to help guide us to be quick, because we know we have extroverts and we have introverts in the world, and some of us, we don't even want to spend 5 seconds introducing ourselves, and some of us would easily talk for 5 minutes introducing ourselves. But in honor of everyone's time, we're going to ask you in tonight's introduction, in this part of the meeting, to please give us your name, just a little bit about how long you've been here in Victoria, whether it's 30 years or 3 months like Dr. Lawrence, and then what you would consider your connection to be. So if I was introducing myself, I would tell you I'm Greg Bonewald. I've lived in the community for 7 years. My connection to the district is both as the deputy superintendent, so as a staff member, and also I'm a homeowner and a taxpayer. And so through these conversations, I have the lens of wanting to do the best for the district as an employee, and also wanting to be efficient and effective in the use of our taxpayer dollars. So I'm going to go down this list, and I'm going to apologize to Matthew Albright because you're first on my list, Matthew.
Okay, no problem. Hey guys, hello everybody. Matthew Albright here, and just going down the list. I've been in Victoria for probably almost going on. Excuse me, I have a little son right next door. I've been here for about 10 years. I'm connected to VISD. I am a parent. We'll have a student right there through the door that will be going to VISD, and community member. I am with Frost Bank, actually with Frost Insurance. Was actually able to come on board and part of the agent team that represents the school district for their insurance. And I am also on the Educational Foundation Board for on the development side as the chairman for the Education Foundation. And happy to be a part, so thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. We appreciate you. Next, we have Carolina Estrain.
One sec, let me get my video on. Where is it? There it is. All right. Hi there, I'm Carolina Estrain. I work with the Victoria Television Group, and it's my day off, but I've been filling in on Tuesday for Sunrise, and Shauna let me know about this task force group meeting, and I love VISD. So, of course, I love to make time for VISD, and I will be recording also and just looking for some tidbits that may be good to report or delve deeper on. And I'm excited about the conversations that will happen about the bond. I know it's a long time coming, and that there's a big need for that in our schools with our buildings. So thank you all so much for everything you do, and yeah.
Thank you, Carolina. Next, we have Dr. Julius Cano.
Okay, here I am. I don't think y'all can see me. I'm not sure how to do this.
We've got you.
I'm on my, okay,
we can see you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here today. I've lived in Victoria all my life, and I'm here because, as a matter of fact, I have 43 years in education before I retired. And I've been a teacher, a principal, consultant for Region 3 Education Service Center, and retired as executive director of the Region 3 Education Service Center. So, and I've worked with, numerous boards, and I am currently the president of the VISD Education Foundation. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank y'all for putting this on.
Thank you for your service to the Education Foundation. Next, we have Bethany Castro.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
We've got you.
Okay, thank you. I am a parent now, and VISD community member, own a home here, and part of the Southside Community Coalition, as well as a nonprofit director here in town. So my clients have kids that go to VISD. Been in Victoria for 2 years, lived here for 1. And as a former teacher, I just know how important public education is. So I'm just so excited to be a part of this group.
Thank you, Bethany. Next, we have Cody Chandler.
Anybody get me?
We got you.
Okay, good deal. Cody Chandler. I've been in this community since 2011. Former teacher, left teaching in 2012. My wife is principal at Charlemont Elementary, and taxpayer, and recently started working here in Victoria, no longer commuting to Houston. Children in the district, and one at Cade, one at Charlemont, and previous task force member on a couple different ones. So glad to be here.
Appreciate having you, Cody. Thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Cleaver. Okay, we have a couple. Jennifer wasn't able to make it tonight. Next, we have Michael Crump.
Hello, everyone. Michael Crump. I've been in Victoria since about May of 2014. Me and my wife have an 8-year-old boy that goes to VISD, and we have 2 younger ones that are going to be starting school here pretty soon. It's the first time that I've been a part of a task force, so looking forward to the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Michael. Next, we have Samantha Dowdy. Okay. Anthony Deezer. Tony, you there?
Have to get that mic undone.
You got it.
Anthony Deezer. I used to work with Julius Connell. He was my boss for quite a number of years because we were both at the Education Service Center. I was there for 38 years. So education has been in my blood, working with administrators, teachers, and parents in the community all along. I'm a strong advocate for students, of course. And I also like to save money. That's why I'm on this committee as well, to make sure that what we're doing is great for the kids, but also for the public. Been in Victoria ever since I got out of the service, so it's been a long time. Homeowner and retired at this point.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have Trey Edwards.
Hello, everybody. I have been in Victoria over 30 years and worked for the district for 28, and have been a parent of a VISD student and a now grandparent of multiple VISD students. And I was part of the task force before, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with them again.
Thank you very much, Trey. Next, we have Gina Elliott.
Hi, my name's Gina Elliott. I've lived in Victoria all my life and an alumni of VISD. And I have 2 students, one at West and one at Cade.
Thank you for joining us, Gina. Next, we have Julie Fulgham. Not sure if Julie was able to be with us tonight. Okay. We have Valerie Garcia.
Hello, I'm Valerie Garcia. I've lived in Victoria for 13 years. I have had 3 students in VISD schools at one time. 2 have already graduated. My last student is at Crane Elementary. Very excited to be part of this. All of my children have had to be redistricted multiple times while going to VISD schools. So I knew it was important to be part of this. I'm the type of person that would rather my taxes go up for something like kids and education than other things. So I'm in favor of, bonds and things of that nature. So I was excited to be part of this.
Thank you for joining us. Next, we have, we have Scott Gorsuch, but I know he reached out and is not able to be here tonight. Next, we have Pastor Oliver Greer. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if Pastor was able to join us. Next, we have Kayla Gutierrez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Gutierrez, and I work with Be Well Victoria at the Health Department. We are funded from the Hawk Foundation of UT. I'm a community health worker, and our goal is to do life with the community and make sure that the underserved population's voice is heard. I'm also a UHV alumni. I'm also a graduate student right now at UHV, and I have been in the community for about 3 years, but I've lived here a year and a half.
Thank you for joining us, Kayla. Next, we have Mike. Okay, Mandy Lingle.
Hi, everybody. I'm new to the task force and I'm excited. I moved here in 2017, so I've only been here for 3 years. I have one kiddo, Brody, at Howell in middle school, and I have one kiddo, Kayla, 3rd grade at De Leon. And ever since my kiddos started, my last little baby started kindergarten, I went with her. So I started subbing. So I've been subbing in elementary schools in the district since 2017. So parent and in the staff, homeowner, obviously taxpayer, and just definitely excited about being on this group.
I have to say a special note of thanks, Mandy, for being a substitute teacher. And we could always use more. If anybody out there on the line is interested in helping us out as a substitute teacher, we'd love to have you. Rachel McDowell, did you see Rachel on there? Okay, I don't think Rachel was able to join us tonight. Next, we have Celeste Menchaca.
Hi, Celeste Menchaca. I've been in Victoria 2 years. I work with the City of Victoria as the development coordinator. I was previously also doing the community block grant, and I still assist with that. And I have nieces in VISD, but I'm glad to be a part of this group.
Thank you so much for joining us, Celeste. Next, we have Betty Milberger. Not sure. She can't be here tonight. That's right. And Dr. Morgan, are you still here? I know he had to leave. Dr. Morgan was with us earlier.
Vic Morgan, I'm here. Former president of the University of Houston, Victoria. Have been in Victoria for about 6 years now. I'm interested, obviously, in education. My wife and I, between us, had more than 80 years of education experience, so it matters, and the facilities are an essential part. I've been a part of this task force from the beginning, and pleased to continue to serve.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Next, we have Rachel Nessel. All right, how about Jesse? Oh, is Rachel here?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had to get my video started.
Thank you.
My name's Rachel Nessel. I was born and raised in Edna. I moved away for a little bit to go to college, but I came back to the area in 2009. Since then, I've worked as the Director of Workforce and Continuing Education at Victoria College. I'm also the parent of 2 girls at Torres. One's in 1st, one's in 3rd, where I also serve as the PTO president. And yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you for inviting me and for all of your work.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Next, we have Jesse Pena.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Jesse Pena. I've been in Victoria for about 12 years. I've got 3 kids, 2 in Vickers and 1 in Kate. Property owner, taxpayer, volunteer a bunch at schools, coach, volunteer coach, run a shaved ice business, Kona Ice of Victoria. So we we partner up with a bunch of the schools and do a bunch of fundraising and stuff. And I'm excited to be part of this task force. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Next, we have Allison Rideout.
Hi, I'm Allison. I've been in Victoria, I guess about 20 years now. I have 2 kiddos that go to Aloe Elementary, a 3rd grader and a 1st grader. And I am a taxpayer, and this is my first time being on a task force also, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Juana Silva.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see us?
Yes, we
This
can.
is, Juana. Well, I go by Monica Silva, and my husband is here with us.
I'm Humberto.
Humberto. I'm a housewife. Currently, I'm a housewife. We've been in Victoria for a year. My husband got transferred over here 2 years ago, and we joined him a year ago. I previously worked as a parent liaison, and I've been volunteering in schools as well and part of the PTO. And previous that, I worked in the apartment industry for 12 years.
Thank you both. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, AT&T brought me here. I've been here for 2 years, and I do believe it's a great community. So being part of this, it's a way of trying to give back and get involved with the growth. And we do have a little one in Chandler Elementary. So try to do our part to be part of the community and make sure that we do things right for our kids.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Ms. Silva. Next, we have David Steves.
David Steves, been in Victoria 20 years. I have 3 kids in various schools with VISD, taxpayer, and I've been on this committee since we started.
David's been with us since day one. We sure appreciate you, David. Next, we have Mark Stroop. I'm not sure. I don't think Mark was able to join us tonight. Next, we have Callie Zuniga. Don't see Callie. Okay. Fayanne Thompson.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha. Yes, ma'am.
I'm at a tennis match right now in Rockport for the West tennis team. I'm a parent. I've lived in Victoria for 16 years. I've got 2 at West, 1 at Patty Welder. I'm the president of the Tennis Booster Club. I'm on the board for the Patty Welder Booster Club. I'm a business owner, taxpayer. I guess that's about it.
Thank you for joining us even at a tennis match, Ms. Thompson. Next, we have Jeff Tunnell.
Good evening, everyone. Like Greg said, Jeff Tunnell. I've been in Victoria 5.5 years. I'm the executive director with Gulf Bend Center. My wife is a retired school teacher, and kind of like Vic Morgan, education is important and facility matters, and to which I was on the last board bond task force and looking forward to being on this one. Thank you.
Thanks for continuing to work with us. Next, we have Dale Zuck.
Dale Zook, lifelong, 63 years in Victoria. Second year on the bond tax force, and look forward to playing again.
Thank you, Dale. He's another one who's been with us since day one. So you're going to notice a shift now. We have all of our community members, parents, those who weren't VISD employees on my list first, sort of alphabetically, and now we're going to jump into, and that was 34 people there.
Can I say something?
Yes, did I miss someone?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're one of our staff. You're coming up, Cora.
Gotcha.
But tell you what, go ahead, take it away. Corey Bina.
Sorry about that. Okay, I thought I was being skipped. No problem. My name is Corey Bina. I am a teacher at Shalimar Elementary. I teach 5th grade. I've taught 4th grade there as well. This is my 6th year. My wife also works for the district. doing physical therapy with students. We're a homeowner, taxpayer. We have a 9-month-old who will eventually make his way to VISD. So again, been on this task force since we kind of shut down. Looking forward to get back the ball rolling and everything. So glad to see everybody can make it now.
Thank you for continuing with us, Corey. Next, we have Natalie Aubermite.
Good evening. I'm Natalie Aubermite, principal at Patty Welder Middle School, and this is my 6th year in Victoria, and I'm a homeowner, taxpayer, and a parent of a future VIC student.
Thank you, Natalie. Next, we have Dana Bigham.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Bigham. I'm the Director of Child Nutrition Programs for Victoria ISD. I have been in Victoria for 26 years and worked for the district 24 of those years. And I am a taxpayer, a homeowner, and landowner in the county as well.
Thank you, Dana. I know Dr. Suzanne Carroll is planning to join us. I'm not sure if she was able to join tonight. Okay. Next, we have Larry Davis.
Well, good evening, Larry Davis. I've been in Victoria 5 months, and I am a VISD employee, and I'm really want to support this because our students and our teachers need this and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next, we have Willett Dean. Okay. Next, we have Jessica Hearn.
Hello, my name, can y'all hear me?
We got you.
Okay, hello, my name is Jessica Hearn. I am the principal of Strowman Middle School, and facilities, that's all I can say right now. I am excited to be a part of this committee because I know that if we get a bond pass, or when we get the bond pass, it's gonna really benefit Strowman and the entire community in the best way possible. And
Thank
I'm sorry, this is my first year in Victoria.
Thank you very much for joining us, Jessica. Next, we have Leandra Hill.
I was muted. Good evening. My name is Leandra Hill. I have been in Victoria all of my life. I'm a VISD product. Graduated from VISD. I have a child that went through VISD, and I look forward to serving on this bond project.
Thank you very much, Leandra. Next, we have Susan Johnson.
Hello, I'm Susan Johnson, and I have 30 years of education. At least this is my 30th year. And I work in the curriculum department. I came to VISD in 2000 and have worked in a little bit in career and tech. I've been in the curriculum department since 2009 and have 2 children in VISD, one in middle school, one in high school. And I also am in the children are in band, so I'm in the band booster. So I have different perspectives as far as what the children's activities are and have a vested interest as far as what activities and interests our students may have, as well as the curriculum side of it, and I own a home. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Next, we have Joshua McNeely.
Yes, I'm the operations coordinator for the maintenance department. I've been here all my life, worked for the school 15 years. I have 2 kids in Smith, homeowner, taxpayer. Looking forward to this.
Thank you very much, Josh. Next, we have John Urbano.
Hi, good evening. John Urbano, Director of Maintenance for Victoria ISD. Been Director of Maintenance for 5 years. Previous to that, I was in Josh McNeely's position, worked no quite a bit about our facilities and excited to meet everyone. So hello, and here we are.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank
Last but not least on the VISD role, we have Adam Wortman.
Adam Wortman, been in Victoria 12-ish years, been with VISD for the last 7 or 8. I'm a teacher, acting instructional coach at East High School. Have 1 kid graduated out of East High School last year and 1 sophomore at East this year. Been part of a lot of committees along the years and have also presented recommendations to the board. Excited to be part of it.
Thanks for continuing your work with us, Adam. Adam's another who's been on since day 1 of task force work. I want to circle back to one more community member that I noticed was able to join us. We sent out an invitation to our city manager, Jesus Garza. Jesus, I'm not sure if you're in a spot where you can say hello to the group, but we sure appreciate you jumping on. No problem at all, but we're so appreciative of you taking the time to join us for when you can tonight. So I want to thank everyone. It was impressive to me as we had that list go through. I know that took a little bit of time, took some time during our meeting tonight, but I think it's really important for us to see the breadth of experiences and perspectives that we have that make up this bond planning task force. And it's exactly the reason that we have task forces like this for complex issues, because we're going to have lots of different ways to look at the problems ahead of us or the challenges that we're going to tackle. We're going to jump into a little bit of School Finance 101, the district's financial overview. Just going to share out how school districts, public school districts in Texas are funded. Here's the big picture. A school district's budget is generated from 3 sources. You have federal funding, state funding, and then local tax effort. And so I want to point you over to the right-hand side, and the largest chunk of the pie there, just over half, is from local efforts. So that's local tax efforts, Victoria ISD's school districts, local tax efforts of the community that go towards supporting the budget for the school district. A little less than half in this current school year comes from the state, 47%. And then while you may hear about federal mandates and requirements for certain things to happen in schools, there's not a tremendous amount of funding that comes from the federal government for public schools. When you look at the entire pie, 2% of our funding year to year comes from federal funds. That federal funding, that 2% of the pie, is appropriated for special programs or to provide services to a specific group of students. One that may most often come to mind are students with special needs in our special education program. That 2% of the funding there cannot be used to replace state or local dollars to fund a program. So those dollars are earmarked to offer programs above and beyond what the school district is already offering. You can't take away local efforts and replace those monies with federal monies. You have to be adding additional programming and services with those federal monies. About half of that 2% of federal funds goes directly to school districts like VISD. The remainder goes to the state. Now the state funding, or that 47% of the pie in this given school year, comes from a program known as the Foundation School Program. And it provides state funding to school districts, public school districts across the state of Texas. This money is administered by TEA. And these dollars are meant to ensure that all school districts, regardless of property wealth, receive substantially equal access to similar revenue per student at a similar tax effort. This is a mouthful. Considering all state and local tax revenues of districts after acknowledging all legitimate student and district cost differences. So what they're saying there is that there's an effort made through the state funding formula to equally distribute state funds per student, taking into account how much money is generated locally. That formula is not always perfect and it doesn't always seem equitable and fair, but that is the way the formula is intended to be written for how state dollars are disseminated to local school districts. And then just over half of our funding for Victoria ISD comes from our local tax effort. So there's a few things to note about the local taxes that support a school district's operation. One, it's important to note that these taxes are generated from property taxes. They're not generated from sales taxes. So sales taxes may go to support other governmental entities, but sales taxes are not a part of the revenues that support a school district. Local property taxes are the revenue source for supporting local school districts. It's also important to note that the Victoria Central Appraisal District sets taxable home values. Sometimes you may hear community members say that the school district raised my home values. The school district does not have control over home values in the local areas across the state of Texas. We do not set home values as a school district. Sometimes these local taxes are referred to as ad valorem taxes. That's another term used for local tax effort. And each school year, a school district adopts 2 tax rates, which determine the total tax rate. One part of the local tax rate is the Maintenance and Operations Fund. It's often referred to as M&O for short. It's also sometimes referred to as the General Fund. The second part of the tax rate, and the smaller part of the tax rate, is the Interest and Sinking tax rate, which is often referred to as the INS tax rate or the debt service rate. When we talk about that first type of local taxes, the Maintenance and Operations or M&O tax rate, these funds are used to fund the day-to-day maintenance and operations of the district. These funds are used to pay for salaries of teachers and other staff. They're used to pay for facility repairs and day-to-day maintenance or routine maintenance. They're used to pay for bus repairs, maintenance to the bus fleet and fuel, for supplies at our campuses and materials for our campuses, and for the day-to-day operations regarding utilities, electricity, water, etc. And so if we were comparing this as an average citizen, as a homeowner, the maintenance and operations tax rate would be used to cover items for day-to-day living, much like house repairs, fuel for your car, routine services, groceries, cleaning supplies, and utilities. The Interest and Sinking tax rate is what's used to fund debt payment for big ticket items. So this side of the tax rate is used when a school district is building a new campus, so new building construction of some sort, or doing significant renovations to an existing building. It's also used to fund purchases of land for potential new campuses, or for program-specific equipment, technology, or school buses. Those are the restricted ways in which funds from the Interest and Sinking or INS tax rate can be used. For the average citizen, this might be similar to a new home purchase, significant house renovations, purchasing land for a home, big ticket new appliances, computers, and cars. Now, the INS side of the tax rate, or that debt service funding, is the side of the tax rate that's impacted when we talk about a school district having a bond election and asking the community to support a bond election to address various types of facility needs or purchases of some of those large ticket items. So the question may come up, well, what is a bond exactly? A bond is a debt investment in which an investor loans money to a school district with interest for a defined period of time. Essentially, it's similar to a family taking out a mortgage for the purchase of their home. And again, school districts issue bonds to pay for big ticket capital needs items like new facilities, renovations, land, and technology. In a bond planning process, if the community supports and votes in favor of a bond, that allows the school district the ability to sell those bonds to investors at a particular interest rate over time to allow the school to gain the funding to do whatever work was approved as a part of the bond. And so much like buying a house, we'll talk to our financial advisors in an upcoming meeting. Interest plays a role in that and plays a role in how much of those funds actually go to work that can be done on behalf of the district versus how much goes to interest payments. So when we look at our local tax effort and we look on the M&O side of the revenue bucket, the annual district budget is passed by the school board of trustees. And in our current budget, 81% of the district's M&O budget supports personnel salaries and related costs. So that's typically salaries and benefits, costs like health insurance. Across the district, that average is around 80%. We are at 81% for the 2020-21 school year. And the INS funds, that's the other side of the bucket. Those funds may only be used to repay debt that has been approved by the voters previously. The INS funds cannot be used on that left side bucket. They cannot be used for salaries, utilities, or other day-to-day expenses. Those are restricted use funds on the INS side of the tax rate. Currently, our M&O tax rate is capped at 96 cents, 0.9664 per $100 of property value. If a district wants to raise, or if our district wanted to raise that rate beyond that cap of 0.9664, it would require voter approval through what's called a tax ratification election. On the INS side of the tax rate and that right side bucket, districts are capped at 50 cents per $100 of property value. That's the highest an INS tax rate could be taken to. And in order for a district to raise their INS tax rate, it requires voter approval in a bond election. Every cent requires voter approval. That's not a decision that a school district or the school board can make without voter approval. Currently in Victoria ISD, our tax rate on the M&O side is 0.9664 again. On the INS side, it's 0.2235. And the total tax rate is $1.1899 per $100 of property value. And if we look at sort of a decade's worth of VISD tax rate information, you'll see starting back in 2011, the blue part of this bar graph represents that maintenance and operation, or M&O, part of our tax rate. The orange part at the top represents the INS tax rate. And so you can see the movement of that tax rate over time, individually and as a total tax rate. You may notice in 2019, in yellow there, I have Harvey. That's representative of a tax rate increase that occurred as a part of an emergency tax rate provision when a school district suffers what's considered an emergency, such as Hurricane Harvey. The district has the ability to raise that M&O tax rate for 1 year in order to reclaim or address facility issues that may have occurred in response to that emergency. So you can see an increase of 11 cents from 2018 to 19 that was a result of Hurricane Harvey. And then you can see a drop from $1.15. It dropped by 18 cents on the M&O tax rate in 2020, partially due to the decrease from that 1 year increase due to Hurricane Harvey, and partially due to new legislation from House Bill 3 that lowered that M&O side of our tax rate. This is just a bar graph, or that's not a bar graph. It's a pie chart. It's a pie chart of our general fund budget for 2020-21. Again, just showing a visual representation that the lion's share of any school district, really, including the ISD's budget, goes to the cost of the people that support our students and the school district. So those go to payroll costs and related costs to payroll. And the other 19% to supplies, materials, and equipment. This is a part of the M&O side of our tax rate. When we look at our bond history as a school district, this is, and I'll call this successful recent, in quotation, bond election history, and really recent going back to 1989. So quick mental math, about 30 years or so. We had a $10,375,000 successful bond election in 1989, a $31 million successful bond election in 1998. That bond was used primarily to build Chandler Elementary and to add on to Crane Elementary. And then the 2007 bond, which was $158,840,996. And that was the bond that resulted in the building of East and West High School, Cade Middle School, Torres and Shalimer Elementaries, and the Natatorium and the Fine Arts Center in the district. So we refer to those facilities as our new facilities, and they serve us very well. And it's hard to believe that that was 13 years ago that bond passed. Wanted to share a little bit of demographic information with you. We worked with a group called Templeton Demographics that services school districts across the state in looking at demographic projections as a part of a task force that we had to look at our boundaries and rezoning. We had some campuses that had become quite overcrowded and some that were not used anywhere close to capacity because our boundaries had not been adjusted in about a decade. And so we went through some complex work there with the task force last year, and were able to redraw a number of boundaries to more appropriately utilize our campus facilities. And as a part of that process, we were able to take a look at projected enrollments over the next decade for the school district. And so when we work with this demographic company, they are looking at various trends in our market, including our birth rate and the percentage of students or children who are born in Victoria who end up enrolling in VISD. And we recognize that we've had some decline over the last 5 years in our school district and in our community. And we are projected to continue to have a slight decline in enrollment over the next several years. And when we look at where we were in 2019-20, last year at 13,844 students, and when we look at where we're projected to be in 2029-30, you can see that we've got what is basically a very stable population projection. We're not anticipating that we're going to have large student growth. It's going to be fairly stable in terms of the projections that we have. I will point out that the number for 2020-2021 was projected to be 13,768. In reality, that number is a few hundred shorter or less than that right now. All school districts, or I'm going to say all, that's most school districts across the state with COVID are seeing a decline in enrollment, particularly at the younger grade levels, pre-K, kinder, first. And we are also experiencing some of that decline. So in looking at that projection, we are below that right now, but we know that COVID plays a role in that enrollment currently. I think what I would want you to grasp from this chart right here as our conversations move forward over time is sometimes school districts are looking at bond planning because they recognize and are projecting growth and rapid growth and a need to provide space for their students. In our situation, that is not a projection that we have. We believe we have adequate space for our students. As we talk about bond planning, our conversations are going to be focused around the facilities that we currently have and the condition of the facilities that we currently have. When we talk about a bond planning process overview, this first page is going to talk about ongoing responsibilities that are really school district responsibilities. One of those is an ongoing responsibility of the school district to assess our facilities, to understand where our needs are, to identify deficiencies and inequities in existing campuses. So a part of that responsibility includes the facilities assessment that we have worked with Huckabee Architects to perform over the course of last school year. And we are excited for you to be able to look at that data with us as a part of this process. Another part of our ongoing responsibilities as a district is to review our financial data and to understand the financial implications in order to make fiscally sound recommendations. And so we do that both in the budgeting process, and we also will talk about financial data and the financial position of the school district in our second meeting next Tuesday. Another ongoing responsibility is for us to study our demographics and enrollment projections to determine areas of underutilization, overcapacity, and potential needs for future growth. So clearly we've been doing that, and I just shared in that prior slide some of the work that occurred and included our task force last year in those types of studies. Additional work that we continue to be involved in is setting a vision for the long-range education, vision for academic programming, to determine the evolution of program demands, what our instructional objectives are, expectations, and standards. And so we've really identified this as both a complicated and a complex task. We have internal work that's occurring around this, and we also have task forces that have been up and running since last school year, talking about the evolving needs of our students and of our school district to meet the demands of the 21st century and where we're headed. We've also got a significant amount of work with our strategic planning committee, which was comprised of over 80 individuals, many community members as a part of that group. So that work is ongoing for our school district as we speak. These next two boxes in the bond planning process are responsibilities for everyone here on this Zoom meeting. One of those is to help us prioritize potential projects and to develop consensus on how to address district needs. So a large portion of our time will be spent looking at that facility needs assessment data and talking about how we may best prioritize addressing the needs of the district that are identified. Another responsibility of this bond planning task force is to make a recommendation to the board to present findings and to make a recommended course of action to our trustees. At that point, the ball is in the school board's court in order to consider those recommendations, and the board studies those recommendations to determine appropriate actions and has the authority to potentially move to that fourth box on this screen and call for a community election for a bond election. School district's board is required to take such an action on calling a bond within 78 days of the desired election day. These next two boxes are considered a shared responsibility. These are really the responsibility of the school district leadership, the school board, and members of our task force. One of our hopes is that as we reach consensus around some form of recommendation, that you will be ambassadors for the school district in terms of helping us to educate our community. The district educates voters on the proposal, and we will certainly do that, but we also ask that our task force members be conduits for us and feed information into this group as you have conversations as this process is going forward, and then wherever we land, that you help us to explain the process and the value of whatever recommendations are brought forward. Ultimately then, the voters, I'm jumping ahead, so I'm on the second one. We vote. Voters consider the proposition. The school bond propositions must be held with the general elections in May or November. School districts are not allowed to choose a date short of choosing whether or not a bond election would be held in the general May election or the general November election. The voters have the opportunity then to approve. A majority of voters voting in favor of the proposition gives the board the authority to sell bonds, as we discussed earlier today. If the voters approve, the district sells bonds to investors in increments over time to match the schedule of the project design, whatever projects have been determined as a part of that bond process. The district then levies an INS tax rate. The interest and sinking tax rate is set annually and is levied to ensure that the district is able to make those annual debt payments. Once all that occurs, there's design that may need to occur depending on the type of work that's being done. These last three boxes are really intended for us to be able to have a conversation about the fact that while we may see needs that exist today, that this is a process and that things don't necessarily happen quickly, and things we see today that we may feel need to be addressed as quickly as possible, there's still a time element involved depending on the nature of that work, because that nature of that work may require some sort of design, where project design is conceptual and concludes with construction documents. It oftentimes is going to require a bidding process, and where projects are bid on the competitive market to select a contractor and ensure the best value for the district. And then ultimately, depending on the type of work or the types of recommendations that are part of a bond, if it involves construction, we know that doesn't happen fast. Building a house, much less a campus or renovating a campus, those things can take a couple of years for them to come to fruition and open. Dan, I sure am happy to be at the facility assessment overview page, because I'm going to turn it over to Dan Luttrell now to share some information about the facility assessment that was conducted throughout last year.
You said I have until 8 p.m. tomorrow, right?
No, sir.
I'm joking. Again, thank you for having me. As Dr. Baumwald mentioned, Huckabee was hired to perform the facilities assessment, as well as participate in this task force as a expert, third party, if you will. But basically, what we did, and I recognize some of you from as campus administrators, principals on some of the campuses that I've walked. But basically, we were hired to go do visual observations of existing campuses. In order to do that, as you go through the bullets, the very first thing we did is I went over to John Urbano's office there, and him, Josh McNeely, and myself went through their archive of drawings of all the old drawings that were used to by previous architects to design and build the existing facilities. And not to get off in the weeds, but kudos to that staff and the record keeping that they have done to make this process easier. But basically what we did is we walked 21 different facilities, mostly campuses, but a couple of other non-academic facilities, more than 85 separate structures. And again, not to sound corrective, but my feet tell me the truth. It was about 1.75 million square feet of facilities that I've walked. I walked into every room I possibly could. Some rooms were locked and just didn't have the ability based on safety and security of King. I walked these facilities during school hours back in the last fall into the spring. So I apologized then. I'll apologize again now that I did walk into some occupied classrooms, tried to be as transparent and non-disruptive as possible. But as such, since these were occupied campuses for the most part, they were non-destructive. They were just visual observations from what we could see, anecdotal information that I received again from Johnny and his staff on, hey, I saw this. Are you guys experiencing issues based on what I saw, just to help corroborate what we saw and what Johnny and his staff are dealing with in terms of maintenance. We actually interviewed various staff members, principals, and campus leadership to get a sense of their needs and their desires. And with all that information, we actually redrew the floor plans at a very diagrammatic level that you guys will be able to see in the information that has been provided to the district, where we were able to obviously create floor plans of the campuses as they exist today. Again, going to those old existing drawings, there's no one drawing that shows the entire campus because it was, they've been renovated over time, additions, buildings demolished. So we've now got a record, a very high level diagrammatic record that we're able to use for confirming spaces, what they're used for, doing TEA assessments to determine classroom sizes and if they meet the TEA minimum standards. And again, because these buildings, many of them are older than TEA standards, predate those standards. Obviously, a lot of those spaces are non-compliant, but that doesn't mean you can't use them as their intended purpose. That just means that the campuses in the district has to make modifications to their occupancy in the classrooms in order for students to teachers, et cetera. And I think I've covered all the bullets. I may have jumped around a little bit, so I apologize if I'm a little out of order. So as I mentioned, there were 21 facilities. It says 20 on there, but you'll notice number 20 are 2 items, Memorial and Patty Wilder Stadiums. But you can see we walked 13 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and then of course Liberty Campus and DAEP at the high school level. Of course, Stroman is a former high school, as far as size. I know there's other schools that have changed functions over the years and operate as something different than they were originally intended. We did walk the transportation facility, the maintenance facility, and the Memorial and Patty Wilder Stadiums. And I'll let you jump ahead, Dr. Bumble. I think you probably have what I want to speak on. Yeah, here we go. So in order to make these assessments meaningful and to capture what essentially turned into about 10,000 pages worth of reporting, we used a system, a software system that allowed us to catalog this information with various topic categories or topics so that we could easily identify noted issues or noted concerns, easily find that. It's able to be filtered, able to be reported. So what we looked at, and again, there's 17 categories, and these have been boiled down and sort of combined for brevity. But so as I'm going through using an iPad device, able to take photographs and tag a photograph directly to a noted issue with a title, I'm able to give it, again, was it a roofing issue? Was it a plumbing issue? So that I can, again, report that out into a document that is easily digestible, because again, 10,000 pages, no way to digest it in its entirety. So we were able to break it down. And again, using that information with the district, their facilities folks, we're able to really break this down into bite-sized consumable pieces that we'll bring to you guys in more detail, in future meetings, obviously, as we start to identify the issues and to start to identify potential projects and priorities. So this was a basic schedule, as I mentioned, starting last fall into the spring. So we met with Dr. Baumwald and Dr. Shepard back in November. Actually, I guess we met in September. Then we put together the schedule of observations, obviously trying to work around campus events, testing, things like that. So we proposed dates. Dr. Baumwald got with his staff and campuses and, counter offered on dates that we could visit. So we built the schedule to walk all 21 facilities. We were fortunate that we were able to finish all of the campuses prior to COVID becoming an issue. I went and walked the 4 added facilities, which are transportation, maintenance, and the 2 stadiums after COVID. But again, virtually skeleton crews and boneyard, or not boneyard, but just empty. But you can see what we did is we actually put a team together. So it wasn't just myself. I was the only one that went and walked facilities from the architectural side, but we had a team of people in the background creating those 3-dimensional models of those floor plans based on the existing drawings. We had other engineers and other professionals looking at their area of expertise in the buildings. So we had professional engineers for plumbing, mechanical, and electrical systems. We had a roofing expert. We had food service or child nutrition experts that were able to assess those specific systems. And then again, myself as the architect, able to review the buildings in their entirety and look at finishes and building systems, building envelope, brick, windows, ceilings, roofs, floors, etc. Well, roofs we had a consultant, so I apologize. Then again, we went and did the TEA analysis, where we have planners on staff that are very, very versed. Sorry, I know it just got dark. My wife shut the door on me. Sorry. We have planners who are very well versed on TEA requirements, who were able to help put together, again, those analyses on those campuses, on which spaces meet the minimum TEA standards. So that, again, we can help bring that information to the committee on prioritization of various projects. We then reviewed the information with the task force that convened prior to, again, COVID. So I recognize some of you from the previous task force. Some of you are new, so again, I apologize for the brevity of this, but it is a tremendous amount of information that will be available to you guys if it isn't already. I know it's all been published electronically. What you will see electronically, though, have been redacted for the floor plans, obviously for campus security's sake. So you'll have to go with Dr. Baumwald on how to get the versions of the documents that have plans as appropriate there. But again, what's published for the general public has been redacted. We submitted the assessment draft back in January. Again, about 10,000 total pages, but about 900 pages or so of the executive summary. It's all tabbed and bulleted, and it's very categorical. So although it's very large, it's easy to go through because of the means in which we did this. And then on Valentine's Day of last year, we submitted the final assessment report. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to that because, like I mentioned, I went and walked those additional 4 facilities that were added to our scope after the original. So the final assessment was part 1, and then we supplemented it with the final assessment for part 2. That was probably about April, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Baumwald, when part 2 wrapped up.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for taking us through that description of the work that was done throughout last year.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to paint a little bit of a picture for those of you who are new to the group. It was sort of anticlimactic for us. I know that it was anticlimactic in lots of ways back in around spring break when COVID hit, but this group had been meeting, this bond planning task force, since September. And we had been sort of teasing them with the fact that we're going to have all this information and data coming forward for us to look at and prioritize. And right about the time that the assessment was finalized and we were getting the information internally, we had to stop our meetings. And so we just kind of hit the brakes right at the time when we were about to sink our teeth into the data, the needs assessment, and work with the task force to prioritize. At the same time, I'm excited in the sense that we have expanded this task force and we have a lot of new perspectives to bring to the work and to the data. And so we are excited to put this information before you. I want to reiterate that I shared out an email with the group a few days ago that included a link to our website where we have this data broken down by facility. There's more data than you probably would ever want to see. But hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages worth of information about these facilities that were reviewed, extremely thorough information. And so as time allows, I encourage you to take a look at that information that is available to you as a task force member, but really to our entire public on our website regarding facilities assessment. So now I feel like a teacher who's trying some new activity in their class for the first time, and they're not sure how it's going to go. What I'm going to try to do here is divide this group of 40-something task force members into small groups. So it's this very powerful position that I feel like I'm in right now, that with a click of the button, I'm going to be sending you away here in a minute to small groups. And then if I can figure out how to communicate with each of the groups via chat, I will. I think I'm going to have the ability to pop in to each of your individual subgroups. But ultimately, after about 10 minutes of conversation in a small group, I'm going to pull you out to come back to meet with the large group. What we are going to be asking you to talk about is just this one simple question. Maybe it's simple, maybe it's not. What is your goal for this task force? So you are going to be moving into a small group of 6, 7, 8 people, and we're going to ask that you talk as a group about what your goal is for this task force. And we're going to ask that as you get in that small group, that you decide who your spokesperson is going to be to share out when we come back into the large group. So rather than having all 40-something of us share, we're going to ask each small group. We've got 6 total small groups. So if you will each select a spokesperson, we'll have 6 people share out on what that conversation looked like briefly, on what your goal is for this task force. With that said, I am going to see if I can make this happen. You may have to click a button that says join. Bethany, hi Bethany, are you able to, is there a button on your screen that says join?
No, what I was watching is a number of participants were like steadily declining, and so I guess they were getting zapped into other rooms, and
all right, I'm gonna zap you into a room here in just a second.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I'm not gonna zap you in. I'm gonna assign you to room number 1.
Okay.
Actually, no, I have a list. I'm gonna assign you into room number 5.
Okay.
And do you
Okay,
get a?
I see it now. Yes.
Awesome.
Ready.
Good deal.
We have to pick our spokesperson.
Mm-hmm. There's everybody.
Hey, Greg, can you hear me?
I sure can. Can you pick me up a Coke?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. So I was literally in the middle of running on the treadmill when you called my name earlier, and so I didn't get a chance to introduce myself to the group, and now I'm at Target. My wife sent me to Target after the gym.
Hey, well, we just appreciate all your efforts to try to be a part and stay up with what we're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I've been paying attention. I promise.
I trust you.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting to see the similarities and differences between, city tax rate, school district tax rate, your general fund versus ours, and that's a conversation for another day on some of those thoughts. But I'll kick it off to answer your question about what we're looking to, I guess, from the experience. Obviously, being involved with the city, you know, I'm interested in bringing a perspective about how we can coordinate planning efforts, and if there are any projects that necessitate any city involvement, public infrastructure, et cetera, that, you know, we're finding solutions that are of benefit to both parties, right? Because at the end of the day, the city has the same taxpayers as the school district. And so if there isn't coordination there on some of the things that overlap, you know, it's not appropriate in my mind. So if nothing else, I'm curious to see what opportunities there are there to leverage resources or at least plan and coordinate so that we're saving the taxpayer money at the end of the day.
I appreciate the efforts that your team have been making already around that, even outside of the bond. I'm going to jump from room to room. You guys feel free to jump in with conversation about what you hope to see happen from this.
Shauna is our speaker.
I'm just here so that I can communicate stuff out.
That is actually, it's going to be a plus for all of the kids. Two, it's, I forgot what the second thing I had on my mind there. It'll come to me later, but that's probably the big thing right there. It's just working with the community, make sure that they have the information that they're going to need, and to really try to find out what those roadblocks could be so that we can address them. Because it's going to have to be so many different ways with working with people. Just so, but again, I think it's always telling them this is going to be what the students need. We need to improve the facilities for the students. We're not doing it for the teachers, although some, you know, they're going, hopefully they will benefit from it, but it's not primarily for them. It's for the students. You know, it's got to improve the education of the kids out there. And I think that's how it's going to be sold. So again, this whole process, I'm going to keep that focus on that side of it.
You know, Matthew?
Yeah, I wanted to add that. That was basically picking up Anthony. That was great. Excuse me, I have a little boy over here, but basically, yeah, just kind of echoing that. Just basically to use this as a source, then go back and be transparent to the community, and really letting them know just the necessity of why and the school district needs this bond. I feel too that everyone knows about it. They knew the past failing of it. They know, you know, I think a lot of people know that another one potentially is coming. But as far as being transparent of the necessities and breaking that down and helping be a voice, come from this task force, can go out to community that I'm around as well, and you know, being transparent and really taking this and being informative and sharing that information so that, you know, it can reach a good conclusion this next time around.
Main takeaway right now.
Yeah.
Same as Michael for me. Absolutely.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys.
I'm sorry?
Is this working well for you?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm just bouncing around. Please don't mind me.
I like that comment about pride, and no matter where you live in the community. I think someone else mentioned equity and balance was one of the words.
I think when the kids have pride in the campus that they're going to, they want to go to school. You're gonna see an improved effort from the kids instead of dreading having to go to school.
Are you mad?
I think pride definitely comes into play.
Are you good? Okay, just making sure you're not mad.
Consequently, I think that's where we are in the conversation is, you know, how are we going to recruit communities value to businesses and other individuals if they come and look at our school district and see what they see? They can go somewhere else and see a better system in place and have their employees and working collectively. And recruiting becomes a challenge for those employers, and I know that, when they look at a school system and say, what other options are there? And we're very proactive for public education, and, you know, that does matter.
Well said. Absolutely.
And I have a slightly different point of reference. I think while facilities are important, I've talked to many people from around the globe whose children are educated on dirt floors, in holy roofs. Some of them are being rebuilt after we've destroyed them in wars, but the facility isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is the actual resource of the school district. The resource of the school district is its people, which is the teacher. In order to have a good school district, you have to have the best teachers. To have the best teachers, you have to offer an above competitive salary, not just one that's around the Victoria area, but statewide. We, as the BISD, have always cinched our M&O to the minimum. As a result, Mr. Bonewall can only go out and recruit what he can afford to purchase. We as a school district and taxpayers must agree that our teachers are the most important facilitators of knowledge. As we learned in the last bond issue, last bond talking points, we're actually overtaxing our INS by 7 cents. We're not using basically 7 cents of the 22 cents to repay the debt. We're stuffing it into the 401k of the BISD, which sits inside of a savings account and grows, provides no value. The proposal of our last group, which ended just a couple months ago, was to take some or all that 7 cents and push it into the M&O without having to expect to have an increase in taxes on our people. We're coming out of the COVID, so we may not be able to expect to get a 30-cent tax increase on our people, but we might be able to fix some basic facilities with 3 of those 7 cents and take the other 4 cents.
For a few years. So I'll put myself on mute and just observe.
I will say, having walked into every campus, you said it best. You know, the teachers aren't encumbered by the space, but if we can improve it, you know, again, I'm here to help support you know, the fact finding or the information providing on that aspect. But I was amazed at how how much ingenuity and inventive your teachers are to to make their spaces work very, very well. Quite honestly, and your teachers are very fiercely protective of your kids. So kudos to it was incredible walking through all your facilities.
I was wondering, Mr. Dan, how many times did you get stopped in the hallways and told to go do something or put a badge on, walking that many campuses?
I don't have it with me, but Dr. Beaumont actually gave me a VISD badge so I could flash it.
Okay.
That doesn't stop people from questioning, what are you doing here? Who are you? What do you want?
Exactly. No, we're trained. You're trained.
Don't worry, we ran a thorough background check on him before we let him do that.
I would have no problem with my child being in Victoria ISD knowing, like I said, how fiercely protective you are, which was just phenomenal to me.
That's good.
Kind of the things I've looked at in our facilities tours and everything is the potential that's at that facility. We already have an auditorium. We already have the Fine Arts Center. Right now you think about kids that can't have a home track meet because we don't have a track facility that can host a track meet. Well, we do have the bones there for a track, which already exists. It just needs a little bit of investment to get it to be a competition track. There's space there to facilitate a softball stadium, a football stadium, technology centers, areas for other fine arts to grow. So I see that potential in that area, and I would like to see investment in that area to build the programs that we've talked about in the other task forces like PTech and make that area the flagship part of what we want to showcase with VISD. Like, think about every UIL and, type of competition you can have in sports and all types of stuff that could be housed there. Depending on how much money they want to spend, maybe even an indoor facility for band practices and athletic practices and what have you. And so I feel like that is something that would be a defining piece of giving the district a face as to say, this is who we are and this is what we invest in. But I kind of got on a rant there, kind of the stuff I've thought about, thinking back over a year and a half worth of task force stuff.
I agree with you. I mean, we have some facilities, but not all. We can't host meets and other competitions. And we're a city of 125,000 with the surrounding. It's kind of
Sure.
sad that we go
Okay,
to Edna,
Dana.
those are better. Yeah.
I just would feel so rude if I didn't tell you before I hit this close all rooms, if I just cut you off. So I'm telling you, I'm gonna hit close all rooms. I'm not sure what's gonna happen when I do, but here it comes. Okay, I have a feeling of celebration as I'm seeing everybody come back. Wow, we did it. I got to travel to every room and I heard some great conversation. I want to be mindful of our time. I have 2 slides to share with you, and I want to make sure we share out. So whoever the representative was from each group, I'm going to ask you to encapsulate it in 1 minute. Okay, the goal of the work with the task force. Group 1, who's our spokesperson?
Well, if I was in group 1, we actually.
Yeah, sorry. Forgot we were.
Oh,
Adam, I'll
gosh.
let you talk though.
First
Okay,
volunteer. Okay.
I'll volunteer as tribute for group 1. Basically, sum it up. We'd like to see equity across the district. We want to see the money spent very wisely. Where it makes sense to rebuild, let's rebuild. Where it makes sense to fix, let's fix it. But we want to see equity, especially in some of those older schools. And of course, the south side of town, whether it's Hopkins or Dudley, we want to see that reinvigorated or renewed. There.
That was less than a minute. Excellent job, Adam. Thank you. Next volunteer.
Okay. Hi. For group 2, we decided that our main goal here is to be a voice for our students, to let the community know what they need, to provide good information to the community so they can be informed, to make a decision about this bond, that we want to make it a priority for what our students need to help them in their education, and to be transparent and positive with everybody to get them on board.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gina. Next volunteer.
I think for group 3, one of our main takeaways was like group 1, equity across the campuses. That way each student, regardless of what campus they go to, can take pride in going to school, increase pride in the kids, as well as the morale of the teachers that are at those campuses.
Thank you very much, Michael.
I'll go ahead and speak for group 5. We also talked about kind of developing that pride in our students. When a building looks nice or feels nice to go to school, they're that much happier to get there and proud of where they're from. But we also focused on teachers, and we know how dedicated teachers are. They're going to teach wherever they are because they love their kids and they love what they're doing, but they shouldn't have to. And so we want to really make investments in our facilities so that our teachers also feel proud and happy to go to school, and they're not having to face hurdles that they shouldn't have to because facilities might not be up to par. And one of our members' goals, and I think it also echoes for a few others of us, is to hear what's going on here and kind of report back to our friends, neighbors, coworkers, our community members we might be in contact with, and then bring those ideas back to the table, because not everybody can make 2-hour meetings 7 weeks in a row. And so trying to be those kind of voices that come to the table and help to share is important as well.
Thank you very much, Bethany. 2 more groups to go. Oh, Dale, I think you're on mute, Dale.
There you go.
Gotcha.
So we're advocates for our students, our parents, the staff, and most importantly, the taxpayers. Susan said if we build it, they shall come, meaning we can get better teachers potentially. While facilities are important, the taxpayers have always said we want more money for our teachers. So the question is, how can we successfully increase teacher pay and repair our facilities? But as Jeff Lyons said, facilities do make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dale. We have one other group to report.
Group 6, yes. We were talking about not only does Victoria deserve fine school facilities for children to go to school in, but we also deserve showcase facilities for athletics as well. And that our kids are somewhat embarrassed that they can't hold track meets, etc. It would be best for our community and for the economy of our community if we could have facilities that support that.
Thank you very much, Dana. Really appreciate the conversation. I want you to know that and I'm really excited about the success of the small groups. We will be using those to a large degree throughout this process. And thank you very much to those of you who agreed to be the spokespeople for your groups. I'm going to quickly throw us back into the presentation for the last 2 slides. We're at 7:52, so we are going to finish on time tonight. Right here, we've got a slide that talks about the time frame for the work ahead. I previously sent out an email to this task force with the 7 scheduled meetings that we have on the books. Tonight, October 13th, is the first. We will meet for 7 scheduled meetings in the evening, all on Tuesday, with the exception of November 2nd. Didn't want to hold a task force meeting from 6 to 8 p.m. on election night. So we're going to meet on a Monday that week. We do have a couple of gaps in the schedule in November. One week, I'll tell you, I'm not going to be here. And the other week is Thanksgiving week, and we're not going to hold a meeting the week of Thanksgiving. But we will ask, as we continue our work, that when we get to the November board meeting, I'll talk to Dr. Shepard. I believe we'll have the opportunity for maybe 2 or 3 of our task force member reps to come and just share briefly with our school board the progress and the work that's going on in the bond planning task force. And we'll make that a regular thing, I believe, up until the point that this task force is ready to make any recommendations for the board's consideration. While we have set out these 7 meetings as our initial schedule, I do want to tell you that I'm not certain how many meetings our group will need. That's not really determined by me or our other facilitators. It's determined by the group as a whole. If we find that the task force has reached consensus around recommendations prior to the end of that 7th meeting, that's okay. If we find that we need some additional time and additional meetings, we can build those in as well. I do want to point out at the last bullet at the very bottom that from a time frame working backwards, if the school district were to have a May election for a bond, that would have to be officially called by our Board of Trustees by February the 12th. So we're talking about a couple months after the new year, or really a month and a half into 2021, we would have to be at a point where this task force had already made recommendations at the latest at the January board meeting to provide us an opportunity to have some community meetings much more broadly to share out the information around those recommendations, for the board to have time to consider those recommendations thoroughly before making a decision to whether or not to call an election on February 12th. So we've got the December 17th or the January 21st board meeting that we're targeting if there's going to potentially be a bond election that would happen in May. This group would need to come to consensus around recommendations either for the December 17th or at the latest that January board meeting date. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, of next week, again from 6 to 8 p.m. Some of the topics that we will include, we have asked the organization, the financial advisors that we work with, to come and talk with the task force about our current projected bond capacity within our current INS tax rate and other tax rate implications and considerations that a school district needs to make when considering a bond election. We will also have conversation around something I heard from one of the groups sharing out today around renovation versus rebuild and thresholds. I don't know if this task force will look at the facilities assessment and see a need for the potential for a recommendation for a rebuild of a campus, but we want to, as a task force, define for ourselves that threshold of at what point does it make sense financially to rebuild versus renovate. And so we'll have some conversation around that in our next meeting as well. That is the extent of the information that I had prepared to share with you tonight. Want to just thank you for all your attention. I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing my screen right now. I want to thank you for your participation tonight. You asked great questions. Everybody was engaged throughout. We've got really important work ahead of us. I know it was a lot of information us giving to you in this first meeting. I expect that dynamic will twist and turn the other direction over time. We are going to bring you information that we think it's important for you to know from a district leadership standpoint, and we'll be asking you what other relevant information do you need as a task force to be confident in any recommendations that may come out of the group. With that said, we are at 7:55. Are there any questions for the good of the group before we call it a night? I just figured out how to stop sharing my screen. Progress. Okay, well, if there are no questions, thank you so much. We will follow this up with an invite for your next meeting. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or phone if you have questions or need any additional information throughout the entirety of this process. I really look forward to working with each and every one of you and appreciate your investment in our school district. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Great job.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for participating.
Not well.